The Galactic Council had gathered in the Great Hall of Varun, a world made of shining crystal and endless light. Every wall shimmered with the colors of distant stars, and the air itself seemed to hum with quiet energy. Hundreds of alien species sat in their seats, each one representing a different world, a different culture, and a different history. Yet on this day they were united by one single purpose. They were there to pass judgment on a world that no longer had a voice of its own. The planet was called Terra, known once to its people as Earth. For generations, Earth had been spoken of as a lesson in failure. The archives called it a dangerous world, filled with conflict, greed, and chaos. The Council scholars often told stories of how humanity had risen too fast, how they had reached the stars before they were ready, and how their ambition had burned brighter than their wisdom. Some said they had destroyed themselves through war. Others claimed they had been wiped out by their own technology. Whatever the truth was, the Council had decided long ago that humanity's time was over. Now they only needed to make it official. The chamber fell silent as the High Speaker, an elder being of the Cathar species, rose from his seat. His voice echoed softly through the crystal hall as he addressed the gathering. He spoke of how the humans had once reached for greatness, building machines that could cross galaxies and minds that could rewrite the laws of nature. But with their power had come pride, and with pride had come ruin. He described how Earth's atmosphere had burned, how its oceans had died, and how its cities had turned to dust. The last Terran transmission recorded centuries ago had been a cry of desperation, a message that no one had answered. The delegates listened quietly, their faces showing neither sorrow nor sympathy. To them, Earth was only history, a world that had burned itself away, a mistake the galaxy would not repeat. The speaker raised his hand and declared the motion to erase Terra's name from the galactic registry. One by one, the representatives placed their seals upon the glowing panel before them. Each light that appeared was a vote in favor. There were no votes against. When the final light turned gold, the decision was complete. The name Terra faded from the records. Its star Sol was marked as uninhabited and forbidden to explore. The Council ordered all remaining Terran data to be sealed in the Deep Archive, where only the highest clearance could reach it. The official record would say that humanity was gone, that the species had vanished without legacy, and that their homeworld was to be forgotten. Outside the Council chamber, the vast city of Varun sparkled under its twin suns. Ships passed through the air like silver birds, and citizens moved along floating walkways made of light. Few of them knew or cared what decision had just been made. To most beings in the galaxy, Earth was a myth told in old songs and forgotten books. They said its people were wild creatures who fought with fire and machines, who dreamed of the stars but could not stop fighting one another. Children laughed at the idea of such a species ruling anything beyond their small planet, but there were still a few who remembered differently. A handful of ancient races that had once known the humans not as destroyers, but as allies. The Doreen still told the tale of how humans had stood beside them during the siege of the Dark Belt. The Myron archive still carried a human proverb carved into stone. Even in darkness, we build the light. Yet even these memories had faded over the centuries, and none dared speak of them aloud. The Council's judgment was law, and to question it was dangerous. As the suns of Varun set, casting long shadows across the crystal towers, the speaker stood alone at the balcony overlooking the city. He watched the stars and thought of how small each light looked from this distance. Somewhere out there was Sol, the dead star of a dead world. He wondered if perhaps the humans had truly been as monstrous as history said. He wondered what they might have become if they had survived. But he did not speak these thoughts. He turned and walked back into the hall, the great doors closing behind him with a soft echo that sounded almost like the sigh of a world being forgotten. Far away, beyond the bright core of the galaxy, the ruins of Earth slept beneath layers of dust and silence. The continents had shifted, the seas had dried, and the last remnants of human cities lay broken under the weight of time. In the cold darkness of orbit, a single satellite still drifted, its solar panels cracked and its circuits barely alive. Every few years it sent out a weak signal into the void. It was an old Earth transmission, a simple pulse of binary code repeating the same message it had carried for centuries. No one listened. No one cared. The signal spread into the emptiness, fading with every passing light year. Yet somewhere deep beneath what was once the surface of the Earth, far below the ruins and ashes, something ancient still stirred. Hidden vaults built long before the final wars remained sealed in the bedrock, their machines waiting for instructions that would never come. The air inside was still and cold. Dust lay thick on the metal floors, and lights that had once glowed bright were now dull with age. But deep within one of those vaults, a faint hum began to rise. It was a heartbeat made of machinery and memory, a whisper of power awakening after 1,000 years of silence. If anyone had been there to see it, they would have witnessed the flicker of a small blue light on a long-dead console. Words appeared slowly on an ancient display screen, written in the language of a world long condemned. The system's old voice, quiet but steady, spoke into the darkness. It was not a message of anger or vengeance. It was only a statement, a reminder written in the code of the ancestors. Human presence detected. Reinitializing core sequence. Terra protocol active, but no one saw it. No one heard it. In the Grand Hall of Virun, the Council celebrated the success of another day, unaware that far away, on a world they had erased from history, something had just awakened. It was faint, weak, and almost forgotten, yet it was alive. The stars continued to shine above, silent witnesses to a secret that would one day return to challenge every truth the galaxy believed. For now, the galaxy slept in peace. The Council believed their judgment had ended an old chapter of violence and fear. But beneath the forgotten soil of a blue world, history had only paused. Humanity was not gone. It was waiting, watching, and remembering. The galaxy moved on without Earth, and time washed away the memory of humans like dust blown into the wind. Hundreds of years passed, and the story of Terra became something old scholars spoke of, only when they wanted to warn young minds about the danger of ambition. New empires rose and fell while trade routes crossed the stars like threads of silver. The Galactic Council continued its work keeping peace between worlds and making sure that no single species grew too powerful. The name of Earth was not spoken in those halls anymore. The planet was gone, and the people who once called it home were nothing more than a line of text, sealed behind ancient data locks. But silence never lasts forever. In the empty corners of space where the light of the Council rarely reached, there were small colonies and forgotten stations still orbiting dying suns. Some of these places were built by humans long ago before their fall. The stations were silent now, their corridors filled with cold air and shadows. But sometimes travelers passing through strange regions spoke of strange lights and odd radio noise. Pilots said they had seen signals in old Terran code, a language no one used anymore. Most ignored it, calling it interference or echoes from abandoned satellites. The Council dismissed the stories as myths and superstition. Still, the rumors spread. On the world of Zirin, a trader named Velas told anyone who would listen that he had seen a ship near the Perseid expanse with markings he did not recognize. He said it was dark and old, but it moved faster than anything he had ever seen. He had tried to follow it, but it vanished into the shadow of a dying star. Others called him a liar, yet something in his eyes made a few wonder if he had spoken the truth. A few months later, an exploration probe from the Council picked up an energy signal in the same area matching an ancient Terran engine signature. It was weak and unstable, but it was real. The Council debated the finding for many weeks. Some wanted to investigate, while others feared the risk of wasting resources on a dead world. In the end, they sent a small scout ship named the Elioth Prime to confirm the data. It was commanded by Captain Lorvek of the Jari species, known for his loyalty and discipline. His crew consisted of 7 beings from different worlds, all trained to handle deep space anomalies. They departed from the Council's main dock under the light of twin suns, their engines burning bright against the darkness. The mission was simple. They were to locate the source of the signal and report their findings back. For 17 days, the Elioth Prime traveled through quiet space, passing empty sectors where no life had existed for centuries. On the 18th day, they entered the Perseid expanse, a vast region filled with drifting debris and the remains of old wars. The ship's scanners began to detect strange readings, faint pulses of power coming from an area near a broken moon. Lorvek ordered the crew to approach slowly. As they neared the source, the lights inside the ship began to flicker, and the communication systems filled with static. The sensors struggled to focus, but something was there, something old and massive hidden among the wreckage. The crew stared at the screen as the image became clearer. It was a ship, but unlike anything they had seen. Its hull was blackened and scarred by time, yet its structure was intact. It had no visible power signature, but faint lights moved along its surface like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Lorvek ordered a scan, and the results shocked everyone. The materials were ancient alloys of Terran origin. The database confirmed it within seconds. The ship was human. Before they could send a message back to the Council, the unknown vessel suddenly powered up. The void around it shimmered as invisible energy fields came to life. The crew tried to retreat, but their controls froze. The sensors filled with strange symbols written in old Terran code. Then the voice came through the static. It was human, but mechanical, slow and deep. The words were simple and chilling. "You are not welcome, leave." The next moment, all contact with the Zenith Prime was lost. When the Council received the distress signal, it was already too late. The transmission ended abruptly with the sound of breaking metal and then silence. Search teams were sent to the last known coordinates, but nothing was found. No wreckage, no debris, no trace that the Zenith Prime had ever existed. The Council labeled the incident as an accident caused by gravitational instability in the Perseid region. They sealed the report and ordered all future missions to avoid that sector. But rumors are like sparks in dry grass, they cannot be contained. Soon other ships began to vanish near the same region. Traders swore they saw flashes of light in the darkness, as if invisible fleets were moving among the stars. Stations near the border reported encrypted transmissions in an ancient Earth dialect that no translator could fully decode. Some said they were just echoes from lost satellites, but others believed something was stirring out there. Something the Council had tried to erase from history. The whispers spread quickly across the outer colonies, and with them came fear. On the mining moon of Dras, a technician named Heron picked up one of the ghost signals by accident while repairing an old communication dish. The message repeated itself every 12 hours in the same calm human voice. It said only one sentence: "The Sons of Terra watch." Heron reported it to the authorities, but they dismissed him. A week later, the entire mining network went dark. Rescue ships found the facilities abandoned and all systems shut down as if power had been drained from the core. No bodies were ever recovered. Across the galaxy, strange things continued to happen. Old records began to disappear from archives. Files about Earth and humanity that had been sealed centuries ago were suddenly gone. Data vaults showed signs of intrusion, but no trace of who had accessed them. Council intelligence agents searched for answers but found none. It was as if an invisible hand was moving through their systems, erasing every trace of the judgment they had once passed on Terra. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, small groups of scholars began to meet in secret. They studied the few surviving records of humanity hidden in private libraries. One of them, a historian named Ilana of the Varel race, started to notice a pattern in the recent events. She believed the disappearances and signals were connected. She wrote in her notes that something from Earth's past was awake again, perhaps something the Council had never truly understood. She tried to warn the Council, but they ignored her. They said she was chasing ghosts. But even ghosts can leave shadows, and the shadows of Earth were growing longer. In the outer systems, more people began to believe that humans had not perished completely. Some said a part of them had escaped before the fall, perhaps in deep space shelters or hidden colonies. Others thought it was artificial intelligence left behind by humans to guard their legacy. The Council feared these ideas but could not stop them from spreading. The more they denied the truth, the more people began to question the old stories about Earth's destruction. In the empty darkness, beyond the Perseid expanse, the stars shone faintly on the silent hull of a great ship. Its black surface absorbed the light like a void within the void. Inside, machines older than any known civilization began to move again, their circuits glowing softly in the shadows. Frozen chambers opened one by one, revealing rows of figures asleep in glass shells. Some were human, some not. They had waited for centuries, their dreams filled with memories of fire and loss. Now the systems whispered a signal to them, the same signal that had once reached out to the Zenith Prime. It said the time of silence was ending. The galaxy remained unaware of what was coming. The Council continued its meetings, speaking of trade and borders while ignoring the quiet storm building at the edge of known space. The people still believed Earth was gone, that humanity had been erased forever. But the truth was already moving like a hidden tide. In the dark between the stars, the forgotten children of Terra were waking up, and the first pulse of their return had already shaken the void. The galaxy tried to forget the strange events near the Perseid expanse, but whispers moved faster then. Light and fear traveled even faster. Ships still went missing, and stations reported seeing shadows drifting through deep space that scanners could not track. The council tried to hide these reports, but the stories reached traders, smugglers, and travelers who carried them from one system to another. They spoke of silent ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished before anyone could get a clear look. Some said they were ghosts, others said they were machines, but one word kept returning in every telling, and that word was Earth. On the world of Rethar, a small outpost picked up a weak signal repeating through the static of a dying communication band. It was in an ancient Terran frequency, one that had not been used in 1,000 years. The technicians thought it was a malfunction, but when they tried to shut it down, the signal changed. It formed words in broken code that translated into one sentence. "We are awake." The outpost sent the data to the council, and within a week it was erased from the official network. The technicians who discovered it were transferred, and their names were removed from the station roster. In the high towers of Varun, the council gathered again to discuss the problem that no one wanted to name. They argued about the lost ships and the broken signals and whether the disappearances were caused by pirates or natural forces. A few suggested that the lost world of Terra might be connected, but their voices were drowned by laughter and silence. The council's oldest member said it was impossible, that humans had been gone for centuries, and the laws of nature did not allow the dead to return. Still, a few eyes in that hall were not convinced. While the council debated, a small research vessel named the Calindra was exploring the edge of the Perseid region. Its crew was made of scientists studying radiation waves from old battlefields. They did not believe in ghost stories, but when their instruments began to detect strange energy bursts, they grew uneasy. The waves carried a pattern, a rhythm like breathing. The data showed a source far beyond the range of normal sensors. When they traced it, the image on their screen froze. Something vast was moving in the darkness. It was not a planet and not a natural object. The captain ordered a retreat, but before they could turn, the ship's lights went out and the stars outside disappeared. For almost 2 minutes, the crew sat in complete blackness. Then a soft light appeared outside the window. It came from a shape gliding silently through the void. The hull was smooth and dark, and along its sides glowed the faint blue of ancient Terran alloys. It was a human ship, but larger than any recorded in history. The crew watched as symbols lit up across its surface, written in the old language of Earth. A voice came through the static, not loud but calm and certain. It said, "You should not have come." The Calindra tried to send a distress message, but the system shut down before the signal could leave the ship. When power returned, the unknown vessel was gone. The council later received fragments of that transmission. The parts that remained showed blurred images of metal walls and symbols glowing in blue light. Analysts confirmed the language as ancient human, but no one could explain how such a ship could exist after 1,000 years of silence. The official report called it sensor interference. Unofficially, fear began to grow among the highest members of the council. They began to remember the condemnation of Earth and the sealing of its records. Some wondered if the silence they had forced upon Terra had somehow awakened something that was never meant to sleep. In the farthest systems, merchants began reporting ships destroyed by unknown forces. Whole fleets of pirates disappeared without trace. Those who survived said they had seen dark vessels appear suddenly from nowhere, attacking with weapons that left no fire, only light that folded space around the target. The survivors said the attackers carried no flags and sent no messages except one single phrase broadcasted across all channels before they vanished. Terra remembers. The words spread like wildfire. Every world, every network, every port repeated the phrase until it reached even the heart of the council itself. Panic started to rise, and the council tried to stop it by denying the rumors, but the denials only made the people talk more. Scholars and historians began to search the archives again, trying to uncover what really happened to Earth. They found that entire sections of data had been erased long ago, not by time, but by order. Someone had wanted Earth's truth buried forever. A historian named Ilana from the Vorel species, who had long believed that humanity might have survived, began to piece together the pattern. She found hidden files in old council records that spoke of Terran vaults deep under the planet's surface, designed to protect life from total extinction. The files described machines built to preserve knowledge and awaken only when the time was right. Ilana realized that the signals and disappearances all led back to the same place, the remains of Sol, the star that had once given life to Earth. She tried to warn the council again, but they silenced her and ordered her research destroyed. Ilana escaped before they could arrest her. She took a small ship, and vanished into the outer systems, leaving behind a single encrypted message for anyone who might listen. It said they condemned Terra, but they did not kill it. Something old is rising, and it knows what was done. The message spread through the underground networks, reaching smugglers, explorers, and even soldiers. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy began to fear the name of Earth again. In the shadows of deep space, the truth was moving. Hidden fleets gathered beyond the edge of the Perseid expanse. Their ships were silent, their lights dimmed. Inside them, humans moved slowly among glowing consoles, their faces pale from long years of cryosleep and isolation. They were the descendants of those who had escaped Earth's fall, guided by machines that had once been built to protect them. For generations, they had hidden, waiting for the right moment. Their leaders spoke softly in the dim halls of their command ships, saying, the time had come to reveal that humanity was not extinct but reborn. The first test came when a warlord fleet known for raiding border colonies entered the wrong sector. They expected easy targets, but instead found the dark ships waiting. The battle lasted only seconds. The Terran weapons tore through the attackers with beams of silent energy, leaving no explosions, only drifting wreckage. When the Council heard of the destruction, they assumed it was the work of some new pirate technology, but witnesses who survived told the same story of ships marked with a blue and white sphere, the ancient symbol of Earth. Now fear became real. The Council sent a secret fleet to investigate, led by Admiral Kirill, known for his strength and logic. His ships entered the Perseid region and disappeared without sending a single signal back. The Council tried to hide this too, but soon the truth spread. People began to say that the shadows of Earth were moving across the stars, reclaiming what was once theirs. The phrase "the shadows stir" became a common whisper in every port and every colony. Across the galaxy, systems that had once laughed at the idea of human survival began to fortify their defenses. But there were others who watched the change with quiet hope. Some old allies remembered what humanity had done for them in the past when Earth had still been alive. They began to prepare messages of peace, unsure if the new humans would listen. In the depths of space, the Terran command vessel known as the Ark of Dawn drifted in silence above the ruins of a forgotten planet. Inside it, an old artificial intelligence awakened fully for the first time in 1,000 years. It projected maps of the galaxy showing how far the Council's influence had spread since the fall of Earth. It marked the places where human colonies once stood and the systems where new Terran signals had been detected. Then it opened a secure channel to every ship in the fleet. A human voice filled the air, calm, steady, and filled with purpose. It said, "We have slept too long. They erased our name and condemned our world, but the shadows of Terra endure. It is time to remind them that we are still here." The stars around the fleet began to glow as engines came alive one by one. Thousands of silent ships moved together, forming patterns that no one had seen since the days before Earth fell. The galaxy that had forgotten humanity was about to remember, and the whispers of ghosts would soon become the footsteps of the living. The night sky over the Council world of Varun glowed with the lights of ships moving through orbit, but there was tension behind the beauty. Rumors of the lost Terrans had spread so far that even the lowest worker on the ground whispered about them, while the leaders in the towers tried to act as if nothing was happening. Yet deep down, everyone felt it. Something had changed in the galaxy. The quiet balance that had lasted for centuries was breaking. Fleets had vanished near the outer regions, and new signals had been detected in the deep void. The Council tried to dismiss them, but the fear kept growing. In a small communication center on a border world named Elira, a young operator named Jovan was running system checks when his monitor flashed with a strange signal. It was old and weak, but it repeated in perfect rhythm. He ran a translation program and stared at the words as they formed. The message said, "We are not gone." He thought it was a trick sent by pirates, but when he tried to trace it, the signal vanished. Then a new one appeared, this time stronger. It showed an image of a blue sphere floating in darkness, the old symbol of Terra. Before he could record it, the system shut itself down. When Jovan rebooted the console, all data had been wiped. He told his commander, but the man only warned him to stay silent or risk punishment. Jovan stayed quiet, but fear had taken root in his mind. Meanwhile, on the far side of the Perseid expanse, something vast was awakening. The human fleet that had slept for generations was alive again. Ship by ship, they came online, glowing faintly against the black. Their engines made no sound, but their power was greater than anything built by the modern galaxy. Inside those ships, men and women walked through corridors of steel lined with holographic displays, showing the faces of their ancestors. They were the descendants of the last humans who had fled Earth before it was condemned. Their voices were calm, but their eyes were hard. They had been raised in silence, trained by machines that carried the knowledge of a lost civilization. Now they prepared to return to the galaxy that had erased them. The fleet's commander was a woman named Admiral Kira Solane. Her hair was white not from age but from the long years of cryosleep, and her face was marked by thin lines that spoke of discipline. She stood in the command hall of the Ark of Dawn and watched the map of the stars projected before her. Around her, officers worked quietly. Each of them had been chosen for loyalty and courage. They knew the mission was not revenge but remembrance. They were to remind the galaxy that humanity had survived, and that its strength was still real. Kira's voice was calm when she gave her first order. Set course for the border. It is time they see the shadows move. The first appearance of the fleet happened near the system of Calith, where a band of raiders had taken control of the trade routes. The raiders had terrorized the colonies for decades using stolen ships and old weapons. They were confident and unafraid until the night the stars above their base went dark. Without warning, a dozen black ships appeared from the void surrounding the system. The raiders tried to fight, but their weapons had no effect. The Terran ships moved with precision and silenced their weapons, glowing with cold light. In less than a minute, the battle was over. The raider ships were gone, leaving only drifting wrecks. The Terran fleet vanished as quickly as it had come. When news of this spread across the trade routes, no one believed it at first. Then recordings from a passing merchant ship appeared, showing dark vessels moving through space, marked with the blue and white sphere of old Earth. The recordings were clear and undeniable. For the first time, the galaxy saw proof that the humans had returned. Fear turned to shock and then to panic. The Council called an emergency session. Every member world sent representatives demanding answers, but no one had any. The High Speaker ordered the military to investigate and to make contact if possible. Admiral Kirill of the Council Defense Fleet led a group of ships to the Calith system. He was an experienced commander, known for his courage, but even he felt uneasy as his fleet approached the area. The scanners detected traces of high-energy weapons unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Then, without warning, the Terran ships appeared again. They did not attack. They simply held position. Kirill opened a channel and sent a greeting asking who they were and why they had attacked the raiders. For a long moment there was only silence. Then a single human appeared on the screen. His face was pale, his eyes sharp, and his voice calm. He said, "You condemned our world and called it lost. You were wrong. Tell your council we have returned." Then the transmission ended and the ships vanished into the void. Kirill tried to pursue, but his navigation systems failed. The Terrans were gone as if they had never been there. When he returned to Varun, the council demanded to know if he believed what he saw. Kirill answered that he did. The room fell silent. For the first time in centuries, the council felt real fear. They ordered the archives reopened, but when they tried to access the old records of Terra, they discovered that the data had been stolen. The files were empty, replaced by a single sentence glowing on every screen. Terra remembers. In the following weeks, the galaxy changed. On remote worlds, strange signals began to appear on communication bands, repeating human words in soft, monotone voices. Colonies that had once belonged to Earth began to receive messages of protection. Pirate fleets and slavers who ruled the outer systems vanished one by one, leaving behind only silence. The people started calling them the Shadow Fleet. The Council tried to control the story by declaring them dangerous rebels, but the people no longer believed the Council's words. To them, the humans had become legends made real again. On Virun, protests broke out as citizens demanded to know why the Council had hidden the truth about Earth. Old races that had once fought beside humans began to question their loyalty to the Council. The leaders tried to calm them, but unrest was spreading. The galaxy that had seemed so stable for centuries now trembled on the edge of change. Admiral Kira watched all of this from her flagship. Her officers brought reports of confusion and fear spreading across the stars. She knew they could not remain hidden forever. Humanity's return had to be open if they wanted peace instead of war. Yet she also knew the Council would never welcome them. It was the Council that had condemned Earth and erased its name. They would see the Terrans as a threat, not as survivors. She stood before the main viewport watching the stars and spoke softly to herself. "They will try to destroy us again, but this time we are ready. Far away on a desert planet, a group of explorers discovered an old satellite buried beneath the sand. When they powered it up, it began to transmit a message in a human voice. The message said, "The age of silence is ending." Terra remembers its children. The explorers tried to contact the council, but before they could send the data, the satellite self-destructed, leaving only fragments. Even from the fragments, the message spread quickly across the network, and soon every world knew that the humans had declared their return. The council met once more under the shadow of fear. The High Speaker demanded that the fleet be mobilized to defend against what he called the Terran threat. But some younger members hesitated. They argued that the humans had only attacked criminals and never harmed civilians. They said maybe the Terrans wanted peace. The older leaders shouted them down, saying the humans could not be trusted. Their decision was final. They would prepare for war. While they spoke, a new signal reached every major system in the galaxy. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. It was clear and strong, carrying a human voice. The words were simple. "We are not your enemy, but we will not hide. Terra lives." The signal ended, but the meaning was clear. Humanity had returned to the stars not as conquerors, but as survivors. Admiral Kira closed her eyes when she heard the broadcast. She knew the council would see it as a challenge, but it was not meant as one. It was a statement of truth. Humanity was not gone. It was alive, stronger than before, and ready to walk among the stars once more. On Varun, the High Speaker looked out at the night sky where 1,000 ships moved in orbit, and wondered if any of them could stand against the force that was now awakening. He whispered quietly that maybe they had made a mistake long ago when they condemned Terra. No one heard him, and the stars above shone cold and distant, while far away in the deep black the Terran fleet began its slow approach toward the heart of the galaxy. The Galactic Council was no longer calm and proud like before. It was now restless and full of fear, and every member knew it. Something was happening. Something that no one could explain: the return of signals, the vanishing of patrols, the whisper of human ships. All of it had shaken the peace that had lasted for ages. The same peace they had built after condemning Earth now felt fragile and unreal in the grand chamber of the Council Worlds. Sent their delegates covered in shining robes and trembling voices. They argued about what to do. They said it was impossible. They said it must be pirates using old Terran code, but deep down they all knew no one else could do what was happening. No one else could hide so well or strike so fast. Only humans had done that before, long ago. Before the judgment of Terra and before their fall. The council tried to keep it quiet. They banned news reports and erased all open files about the strange signals. But secrets never stayed hidden in a galaxy of billions. Soon whispers spread through. Space traders spoke of black ships that appeared from nowhere and left wreckage behind in perfect silence. And the ships carried no flags, only the blue and white sphere that old historians said was Earth itself, the symbol of Terra. And when they were hailed, they sent only one message: "We remember and we return." Then they vanished again, leaving wrecked fleets and terrified survivors. The High Chancellor of the Council, a being of crystal and light known as Varith, stood alone in his chamber trying to make sense of what was happening. He had read the old judgment files, the ones that told of humanity's past. He saw the same old words again: violent, uncontrollable, dangerous. He had once believed them. Now he was not sure anymore if the Council had been right to erase Earth. Maybe they had made a mistake. Maybe they had feared what they could not control when the first Council data vault was breached. Everyone panicked. It was one of the secure memory cores from the Judgment era, locked away by 10 layers of encryption created by machines that no longer existed. The alarms sounded across every world. The records that condemned Earth were gone. The files were not deleted. They were rewritten. The new files said something strange. Terra preserved. Terra endures. Terra watches. The Council called it an act of rebellion. They blamed spies and hackers and enemies, but none of their systems showed any trace of intrusion. It was as if the change had come from inside the archive itself. Every world that once took part in the judgment started to look inward, trying to protect its borders. Fleets moved restlessly between stars. Stations where reinforced alliances were tested and broken. Many races that once mocked humanity now feared their own history. The archives of old wars were reopened, and every story about humans fighting and surviving seemed new again. because no one could deny that they were returning, but no one knew from where or how. In the dark space near the edge of the council zone, a small moon outpost reported a visitor. It was not a ship that came through normal space, it just appeared out of nothing like a shadow growing from the void. The outpost hailed it but got no answer. Only a soft tone repeating over and over in an old Terran language. Then the tone changed into a voice. It said, "We told you, we remember." Then the outpost went dark. The transmission ended mid-word, and all the satellites around it showed a flash, and then nothing. The council sent a fleet to investigate. A fleet of 30 ships. None returned. No wreckage was found, only a slow signal that said, "We see you. We remember you, we do not forgive." Now the council worlds began to break apart in fear. Some races wanted peace. Others wanted to attack. Some wanted to hide. Many species that had once been helped by humans during the early expansion years began to speak secretly. They remembered the old days when humans had shared their ships, their medicine, their courage with others, when humans had uplifted weaker species and asked for nothing in return. Now those same species felt shame. They had turned against Earth when the council demanded it, and now they did not know what would happen to them. Vareth tried to bring order. He called for a grand meeting of the leaders of every world. They gathered under the glowing roof of the great chamber. Each voice spoke with fear and anger. They accused each other. They accused the Terrans. They accused fate. They spoke for hours, and no one listened until the chamber lights dimmed and the council screens turned black. Then words appeared in bright white across the main display. The message read, "You erased our name. But the stars remember. You locked our story. But time kept it. We are not vengeance. We are the truth you tried to bury. This is Terra's echo. We come to collect what was promised." The message ended, and for a long time no one moved. The silence was deeper than space itself. The council guards scanned the systems, but there was no source for the signal. It had come from nowhere. In the following days, the council began losing control. More archives were rewritten, more ships disappeared, entire colonies went silent. Some members began to resign. They said the council's power was over, that the age of judgment was done, and that a new age was coming, one that no one could stop on distant worlds. Small groups of people began to gather, calling themselves the Children of Terra. They believed the humans had never died, that they had gone into the dark to rebuild in silence, that they had become something new, something greater. They spoke of a hidden world beyond the map, a place that no one could find, where the last humans had survived and built again, a world called New Terra. One night, as Vareth stood by the great window watching the spiral of the Milky Way, he saw a new light appear near the galactic rim. It was faint and blue, but it was not a star. It pulsed in slow rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. He knew it was them. He called the council guards, but they could not see it. Only he could, maybe because he was one of the few who had read all the judgment files from the beginning. Maybe because the Terrans wanted him to see it. After that day, he began to hear a soft sound. In his chambers, a steady, low hum like the vibration of an ancient engine. It never stopped. It grew louder every time another fleet vanished. In the border systems, people began to notice strange changes. Planets that had been abandoned for centuries suddenly came alive with lights deep under the surfaces. Massive structures began to rise like the old Terran cities. They glowed with soft blue light and moved like machines of stone and steel. The council sent drones, but they were destroyed. The signals came back saying only one phrase: Terra returns. The galaxy was now divided between fear and hope. The younger races wanted to reach out. They said maybe the humans were coming back to rebuild, not to destroy, but the elders remembered old wars. They remembered the power of human weapons and the hunger in their hearts. They said humans could not forgive. Vareth tried to speak to the council again. He said, maybe it was time to talk. Maybe they had to open the old gates and face what they had done, but no one agreed. The vote was split. And then, before anyone could decide, every screen in the chamber turned black again, and the same voice that had spoken before returned. You feared us, you erased us, you forgot. We were the light that carried you out of darkness. You cannot judge what made you. It was not anger. It was not shouting. It was calm and heavy, and it made every being in the chamber feel small. The voice faded and the screens went dead again. Then Vareth spoke for the first time in a long while. He said, "Perhaps they were never gone. Perhaps we were just blind. Outside across the stars, more fleets appeared. They did not attack. They moved, silently across the systems, repairing old stations, restoring broken satellites, sending coded messages to old colonies as if claiming what once belonged to them. Without war, without violence, just presence and power, and every world that saw them knew the same thing: the age of the Council was ending. The age of Terra was coming again. The message that followed was short and final. The age of silence ends. Terra remembers its children, and when the message ended, the stars themselves seemed to pulse like they were breathing, and every living being across the galaxy felt it deep inside, like the echo of something ancient, waking from a long sleep. The galaxy had never been so quiet and tense at the same time. Every system waited in uncertainty as the Terran fleets moved steadily across the stars. They did not shout. They did not fire unless provoked. They simply existed, and their presence spoke louder than words. Each ship carried humans who had slept through centuries and had now awakened with purpose and clarity. Inside the Ark of Dawn, Admiral Kira Selene watched the holographic map of the galaxy with steady eyes. The fleets had grown larger than any Empire had ever seen, and every move was calculated, precise, and deliberate. She did not fear the Council. She respected it, but knew it had judged without understanding. Humanity had been erased and condemned, yet here they were, alive and vigilant. In the Council worlds, panic had grown into chaos. Some populations fled to hidden corners of space, others built fortresses in orbit and on planets. Trade stopped in the outer systems as rumors of the Terran fleet spread faster than light. Entire sectors became silent and empty as fear gripped those who remembered old stories of humans who had once ruled with courage and fire. Meanwhile, in secret, some species reached out to the Terrans, sending coded messages that acknowledged friendship and old alliances. They remembered the days when humans had helped them rise, teaching them technology, medicine, and strategies for survival. Admiral Kira knew she had to make a decision soon. The Terrans could have attacked any Council world already, but she chose restraint. The mission was not conquest, it was remembrance, visibility, and warning. Humans had been underestimated and erased from history, but they had endured, hidden in the darkness, preserving their knowledge, their skills, and their strength. Every ship in the fleet was a reminder that Earth's children had survived, and now the galaxy would know that truth. The first public appearance of the Terran fleet happened near the system of Valtor, a trading hub controlled by the Council. For centuries, the system had thrived under their guidance, and the Council considered it a safe demonstration of their power. But the moment the Terran ships appeared over Valtor, the skies filled with silent light. Dark vessels lined up with perfect formation, and no Council fleet could approach them. Holographic screens appeared across the system showing the ancient blue and white symbol of Terra. The citizens watched in awe and fear as the message came through in a calm human voice. "You condemned our world and called it lost. We are here to show you that truth cannot be erased." The Council scrambled to respond. Admiral Kirill led a squadron to engage, yet the Terrans did not flee nor attack unnecessarily. Instead, they allowed themselves to be observed. Their ships were advanced beyond any technology known to the galaxy, moving through space with energy flowing like a living force. Their presence alone demonstrated power and discipline. When Council ships fired, the weapons were absorbed or deflected with elegant precision. The humans moved as one organism, connected by purpose and experience, yet each individual trained and alert. News of the Terran appearance spread to the outer colonies. Citizens and officials alike were forced to reconsider everything they had believed about Earth. Rumors of extinction were false. The humans had not only survived but had grown stronger. Traders who had once mocked the myths of Terra now spoke in hushed tones about the Shadow Fleet, the children of a forgotten world, who had returned silently to remind the galaxy of their existence. Some old allies who remembered human intervention in the past began to send signals of welcome, hoping to re-establish ties with the species that had once helped them. In the Council chambers, arguments raged. Some members demanded immediate attack, to destroy the Terrans before their power could grow, while others argued for negotiation, fearing that provocation could lead to catastrophe. The High Speaker, an elder being of Virun, realized that the council had underestimated the humans not once, but twice. First, by judging and condemning them, and second, by ignoring the signs of their survival. He tried to reason with the younger members, urging caution, but the fear was already consuming reason. Meanwhile, the Terran fleet moved silently across sectors, targeting only the areas that had been abandoned or controlled by criminals. They liberated stations overrun by pirates and restored systems that had been neglected. Their actions were deliberate, meant to show both their capability and their restraint. Every human aboard the ships understood the importance of patience. They were not there for vengeance, but for proof that Terra endured and that humanity's shadow could no longer be ignored. Small encounters became more common. Council scouts and traders began seeing Terran ships appear and vanish without firing a shot. They observed advanced technology, the smooth lines of human design, and weapons that bent light and energy to their will. Every sighting created a mixture of fear and respect. In many systems, populations began to question the Council's authority, wondering how they could have condemned an entire species without ever seeing their full potential. Admiral Kira monitored all transmissions personally. She knew the Council would try to control the narrative. She also knew that misinformation could lead to unintended war. Each message sent by the fleet was carefully crafted to assert presence, but not provoke unnecessary conflict. "We return," said one message, broadcast across dozens of systems. "We are the children of Terra. Our history was stolen from you. Our future is ours to claim." The words were simple but carried weight, echoing across the void, reaching ears that had long forgotten the truth of Earth. The first direct meeting with the Council happened when a Terran envoy appeared in orbit of Virun. The flagship approached slowly, not hiding, not attacking. On its bridge, Admiral Kira stood as the Council representatives appeared on the communication array. Their expressions were a mix of fear, awe, and disbelief. Kira spoke clearly and calmly. "You judged us without understanding. You condemned a world and erased our name. We have returned not to destroy, but to remind you that life, courage, and history cannot be erased. Terra remembers. Humanity endures." The silence that followed was heavy. The Council had never heard a human speak with such authority, such clarity. The words cut through centuries of arrogance and complacency. No one dared respond immediately. Finally, a young delegate of the Myran species spoke. "If this is true, then we have much to learn and much to make right." Others nodded, and slowly a discussion began, not of war, but of acknowledgement. The Council had to understand that the era of judgment was over. While negotiations were uncertain, the Terrans continued their work. They visited old colonies, rebuilt systems, and established hidden communications networks to protect vulnerable populations. Every fleet movement was a lesson in discipline and strategy. Every action, a statement of intent. They were showing the galaxy the value of humanity, the discipline of a species that had endured centuries of condemnation and survived. By the time the fleet reached the core systems of the Council, the galaxy was transformed. Fear had turned into cautious respect. Populations were divided between admiration and caution, between hope and old prejudice. The Council itself was forced to acknowledge the truth. Humans were no longer a myth, no longer a shadow, but a reality whose strength could not be ignored. And the message repeated everywhere: "We are here. We are Terra. We are human." In quiet moments aboard the Ark of Dawn, Kira reflected on the centuries of suffering and silence. The humans who had slept and waited had now reclaimed their place in the stars. They had no desire to conquer, yet the galaxy could not ignore them. They were proof that history could not be rewritten, that judgment without understanding was meaningless. Humanity had returned, not with rage but with clarity and purpose. Finally, the Council convened a new session, this time in a state of humility. The High Speaker addressed the representatives. "We judged a world and condemn,